Perfect. So thank you for that introduction, Caroline. And to add to that, I work as a patient advocate for fertility clinics abroad. My background is in psychology and antenatal mental health. It's a subject that is really close to my heart. And in my daily job at the moment, I support English-speaking patients who are just starting with searching for IVF treatment. So I support them with navigating the options, finding the right destination for them, finding the right clinic. I know how daunting the process can be when you feel overwhelmed with all the options out there, and I aim to share the knowledge that I get from the patients who are already undergoing treatment. And I try to share it with those who are just starting out to help them out. It's very important for me to empower patients with information, help them prepare emotionally, practically for the process, and also I support them in advocating for themselves with clinic staff.
Amazing. Plenty of things to discuss really today, because it's a definitely a broad topic, and we will talk about egg donation not only in one country, but of course different countries. So we have lots to discuss for sure. And I already see your question here, so thank you a lot for that. And we will go back to your questions, so please keep them coming, and we will simply start with the question that we have here, and afterwards, as I mentioned, we'll be happy to answer them. Okay. So first of all, if you can tell us, where is the egg donation treatment possible for women over 50? There are some age limits and they can differ from country to country. So if you can introduce that part first for us.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to egg donation, we see a growing trend of more and more women over 50 who are seeking treatment like that. And it's also something we've noticed at fertility clinics abroad. We've also noticed that the options are broadening a bit with time. It used to be that there was very little option to this group of patients. Now we see more and more. Overall, there's quite a few countries now that offer this treatment, but they do differ in their popularity. So, for example, in Europe, you will be able to find egg donation treatment in countries like Greece, Spain, North Cyprus. They are the most popular ones. But there's also some less popular options like Latvia, Slovakia, even Poland or Ukraine and Russia, where sometimes the age limits are not legally specified and there's a bit more options for patients. But from my experience, most international patients, they choose to go with Greece, Spain, and North Cyprus. This is where there's a lot of international clinics with very positive reputations that are able to coordinate treatments with patients abroad, that are quite well known now in communities of patients, and they are the most popular option. Overall, even within those three most popular countries, there's still added barriers to those patients. So, for example, in Spain, most clinics still have a cutoff age of around 50. There's a few clinics that extend this and allow patients over 50, but it's still very few of them. On the other hand, Greece, North Cyprus, here the standard age limits are higher. In Greece, it's usually 54 years old across clinics. In North Cyprus, this is usually 55. But there will be additional requirements for women over 50. In Greece, starting from age 50, women have to undergo additional test results and they need to first get an approval from the national authority for assisted reproduction before they are able to start treatment. Whereas in North Cyprus, there's more tests and more requirements starting at age 45, so even earlier. So your routes at this age might be a bit longer. There might be more assessments you need to undergo, but there are definitely still options available. There's also options beyond Europe. I mostly work with patients who are seeking treatment in Europe, so this is usually where I know most about the options. But I've heard from my patients that some clinics in Australia, Canada, US also have flexible age limits.
Okay, that sounds good. And actually, I think we can answer this because we kind of covered this already from Natasha. Why is egg donation offered for over 50 as opposed to cut off 50, considering more health tests are required? I heard it's better to do it before 50. I guess the answer is yes, of course, but of course there are different aspects of life, I think. So this is the main thing,
I
right?
think it's quite it's difficult to tell, right? Because everyone will be in a different health overall health status at different ages. And even though many countries recommend undergoing treatment before 50, sometimes there's things that we can't control, and there will still be patients over 50 that are wanting to pursue this treatment. When it comes to egg donation, we're not relying on the quality of the eggs of the woman. We're not relying on the egg reserve. So actually, we have some more flexibility when it comes to the age limits. And the age with egg donation is actually a very small factor affecting the success rates. So from a medical point of view, there's obviously things to screen for when it comes to the safety of a woman carrying a pregnancy. But in terms of egg donation, we actually can offer it above 50.
Mhm. Thank you for making this clear, I think. So thanks a lot, Natasha, also for your question. If you have more questions, you know what to do. Go ahead, type those in. And if you can tell us what factors a patient should consider when choosing a destination. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I feel like this is such an individual decision, and the answer will differ depending on where you're from, which countries you feel more familiar with, your history, the stories you've heard from your community. So it will be very individual, but there are some overall factors that I like to explore with my patients to help them narrow down the choice, especially when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're not sure which country to focus on when seeking treatment. So one is definitely the age limits. It's best to just focus on the countries where legally you're able to access treatment and there's well-established routes for you to do that. Another thing is legal requirements, additional testing. So it's important to know, for example, whether the country allows has requirements around marriage, for example, or whether you have to be a couple. It's important to consider what additional testing is necessary by law for you to qualify for treatment, whether the procedures you are seeking are available in that country. Other thing is the programs that you're interested in. So across countries, there's different programs in terms of the guarantees they offer, in terms of the procedures they offer. Some procedures are more restricted in different countries, like genetic testing. Other things to consider is the cost, and this is usually the primary factors for so many people when it comes to deciding for treatment abroad. So considering the overall cost of egg donation, which is larger than the cost of IVF with own eggs, is very important. And another thing is travel. So how um, how it would be for you to travel to that country. You need to consider whether you have an established connection, like flights, for example, or trains to that country. How long it will take you to travel there? Do you know anyone there? Does the country feel familiar? Or would you feel safe going there? These are all important factors. Sometimes people need to consider stuff like, do I need a visa before I decide on a treatment in a particular country? But once you find destinations where you meet the legal requirements, you feel comfortable traveling to, you know this is a country where you will find international clinics which are experienced in supporting international patients and coordinating treatment of international patients. This is how we can start building your list. Another thing with egg donation is availability of donors. So consider when you want to start treatment. If you want to start as soon as possible, you need to consider the waiting time for the donor from the clinic. So in some countries, there's less donors available. You might have to wait longer. If you want to do an egg donation cycle with fresh eggs, the timeline will be longer. Sometimes features of donors are different across countries. So You have to consider whether you would be able to find a donor that looks like you in the country. I've heard from my patients that, for example, in destinations like Spain or even Greece, it might be difficult to find someone who's very pale or maybe has red hair, green eyes. So it's something that's important to talk to the clinic about, the coordinator about, get a rough idea of how long it will take for you to start everything.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of things to consider. And I think one of those things is definitely something that I would like to ask you now, because what is better? I don't think there's an answer to that, because I think it's very personal. But when it comes to anonymous versus non-anonymous egg donation, right? So can you tell us how it works?
Yeah, so actually, many patients that reach out to me, they don't really know what it means, or maybe they don't know the difference. It's not a factor they sometimes consider unless they've already done some research. Um, there will be quite big differences between countries when it comes to the anonymity status of the donors. So, in some countries, they're anonymous, in some non anonymous. Anonymous means that when the child grows up to be an adult, when they turn 18, they won't receive any information about the donor's identity. Um, Non-anonymous means that this information is released. So, for example, in the UK, it's very standard that all donations are non-anonymous, which means that when the child turns 18, they can access the name of the donor. It can give them some information about where their biological material comes from. This will differ based on the country. So, for example, Spain, they only offer anonymous egg donation, which, if you have a preference one way or the other, it's important to consider. And whether one is better than the other, I've noticed this is also very personal. There's pros and cons to both models, and it's something you need to consider, decide with your spouse, think about what the implications would be for the child and for you, and think about which one you feel more comfortable with. So, for example, the pros for anonymous egg donation is sometimes it means the availability is better. So there's a broader donor pool for the clinic to choose from. The timeline might be quicker for you to start, and all of this will be important. Some people actually prefer this model because they believe that they feel more secure because they believe they are the parent and there's no need for them to know details about the donor. And other people find comfort in knowing more. So they want to receive more information about the donor, they want to connect with them. They also want the child to have the option to find out later on about who the donor was. So it is a very personal matter. I would recommend you, before considering egg donation abroad, you think about these questions. How important is it for you to know information about the donor? How important is it for you to be involved in the matching process? Do you want to be the one selecting the donor, or are you okay with trusting your medical team with that? This will vary depending on the country in terms of what is available. Sometimes people have different concerns, and it helps them to learn more about just the donor matching process, the implications of it. Some people, when I suggest anonymous egg donation, they have concerns about whether the donor that the doctor assigns them will look like them. They have concerns whether the donor is a healthy person that will give them a good chance of becoming pregnant, whether they were screened well. So these are all very valid concerns. And I always recommend getting detailed information from the clinic you're considering about this. To help you with those concerns, all clinics have a duty and an ethical responsibility to have a thorough donor matching process in a way that ensures that the donor features much more features. This process involves several medical professionals from your team assessing the potential donor pool, comparing the donors with your features. They will ask you for a document with your features. They will ask for your photos now and when you were younger, around 20 years old, to find a donor with similar facial structure, similar features, similar psychological features, education, and so on. So it is a thorough process, and the clinic can let you know exactly how they do it. Some clinics offer more advanced technology in this process, like biometric facial scanning, for example, which some people find comforting because it's a bit more objective, maybe, than a person. This program then scans the facial features of the donor and matches the most similar donor to you with you. Some clinics use genetic matching, some use personality matching. There's a lot of different approaches to this. With non-anonymous egg donation, there's also implications to consider. In some countries like Greece, if you choose this model, you might be able to be more involved in the donor selection process. You might be able to choose the egg donor for an external egg bank, but then it's really important to confirm with the clinic what are the implications for your treatment if you do this. Because then the donor is not screened by the clinic, they're not known by the clinic, and you're trusting a third party to do for screening. This might impact, for example, the guarantees that the clinic can offer you during your treatment. It's definitely something you should ask your coordinator about. What are the pros and cons of the model that the clinic uses? What you need to consider, how the donor selection process looks like. They can send you exact details of what tests the donors undergo, what tests are optional that you can ask for. Yeah, and I also want to mention in some cases, for example, in Greece, if you decide to select a donor that you can choose yourself from an external egg bank, which is often what the people that want non-anonymous donation choose, you also get to find out more details about the donor. And that's another important thing. So, and I don't mean identity photos or name, but I mean features. So their hair type, hair color, eye color. In some cases, pictures might be available, sometimes just as the donor as a child, sometimes both as a child and an adult. So it gives you a bit more agency in that process. It lets you be an active participant in choosing your donor. But again, different clinics will have different policies around this. And yeah, it's just best to discuss this thoroughly with your coordinator.
Definitely. Yeah, especially that it can differ not only between countries, but actually the clinics itself. So it's always crucial to discuss that matter. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And so let's have a look at the questions that we got. You already mentioned that there are some additional tests you need to do. And as you can see, Claire would like to know, why do you need a mammogram as a test after 50, sorry.
Yeah, so mammograms are often asked for in countries like Greece, North Cyprus. I've heard clinics in Spain ask for it as well, especially for women that are of more advanced maternal age. This is part of more rigorous screening that women of more advanced age have to undergo before qualifying for treatment. In terms of why, I think it's best to discuss with your doctor. Some things that might be relevant is hormones that you will be taking during your cycle. They might, for example, exacerbate the risk of some conditions, which is why the mammogram is used to screen you beforehand. Again, different people will have a different risk for that. You might be able to ask your doctor whether it is needed in your case or what the benefits of doing it in your case are. Sometimes it's required by law. So, for example, in Greece, in order to get an approval from their authority after 50, you have to submit a letter from a doctor that will include the result of the mammogram or other type of breast examination. So in some clinics, it will be required by law. Sometimes it's a recommendation by a doctor, and it's good to clarify this with a clinic.
Yeah. Thank you. Very, very important as well. And as someone, Claire actually asked, will there be more risk in the pregnancy and labor after 50?
Again, it's really important to consider. And I think the best person to ask about this that will be able to give you individual advice will be your doctor. And yeah, there might be. And it's the same for younger women. Different people have different risks in pregnancy. There might be higher risk of um, cardiological issues because you're taking hormones, and then because you might be need to take the hormones after the transfer as well to support the pregnancy, so that might affect your body. Sometimes there might be a risk of other conditions, like, for example, diabetes or complications in pregnancy. But how much your risk increases depends on you specifically, your risk factors, the type of treatment you want. Um, some patients reach out to me and they have a preference for having a multiple pregnancy, a twin pregnancy that will involve additional risks. So the treatment you're choosing, the previous treatments you've had, these are all potential risk factors that need to be assessed in the context of your overall health, in the context of your test results, and the doctor will be able to tell you what the risks are and also what measures can be taken to prevent those risks, or um, yeah, whether there's anything they recommend you introduce to minimize them.
Yeah, I think that's clear. Thank you. And we talked about, countries and age limits and which countries accept 54, 55. This is the question from Christina.
So for 54, North Cyprus might be a good country to consider. You will need to first undergo additional tests, and I know most patients choose to fly over there for the tests. So it might, add an additional month or two to the entire process and the donor matching. So it's best to start slightly ahead of the time of the age limit. In some cases in North Cyprus, a clinic can ask to treat you even if you're slightly above 55, but it will have to go for additional approval, so it's not a guarantee. Other countries are, for example, Latvia, which has quite flexible age limits. Some clinics in Latvia treat patients until 55, sometimes even higher than 55, based on your individual situation. Yeah, other places you can consider is, for example, Russia and Ukraine, where the age limits are more flexible. And again, you can ask for an individual evaluation. Poland, some clinics in Poland are open to patients around the age of 55, but not all of them. And there's more legal restrictions. For example, you need to undergo treatment with a male partner, you need to be married, so more barriers. Yeah.
Definitely. This is another aspect to consider, right? So there are those little tiny, let's say, sometimes details that are important, and you actually need to think about it before going ahead, of course. So thank you for that. And well, we can still answer that question. I think, have you known any women that regretted going through egg donation? This is the question from Natasha. Have you had any discussions like that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, I haven't had discussions like this personally with patients. I can imagine there's a lot more stigma. For example, if you're a woman over 50, you've decided to go for a donation, which is emotionally difficult, practically difficult. You're putting a lot of effort into pursuing this goal. If you have feeling of regrets, I can imagine that a lot of patients or a lot of women, they don't feel comfortable opening up about that to professionals, to advisors, even to their close ones. Um, and I think it's true for a lot of mothers overall. There's a lot of stigma in terms of regretting to go through a fertility treatment or deciding to have a baby. So I can imagine it's much more difficult for them to come forward. If you search on Facebook groups. Maybe there will be some maybe anonymous people that want to come talk about those feelings. But personally, it's not something that patients have opened up to me about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification, of course. And let's have a look. There are some more questions. So again, go ahead, type those in. And well, do women over 50 have to, we talked about it, get additional tests before qualifying? And if you perhaps can include what kind of tests are those typically?
Yeah, so I've already mentioned there will be more tests required in most places, sometimes by law, sometimes by the clinic.
Right.
And it's usually in the best interest of the patient to make sure that the pregnancy will be safe, to make sure that the doctors are informed of any underlying conditions that might be relevant during the pregnancy or during the treatment. Overall, the main ones I see that they ask for outside of the standard ones like hormone analysis, like ultrasounds, spermiograms, I can see quite a lot of clinics ask for a report from a cardiologist or ECG testing. So, test to check the condition of your circulatory system. Mammograms are very common. And this is because of the side effects of the hormones at an advanced age. Other tests that I see, actually, they do vary quite a lot depending on the clinic or the destination. In Greece, it will be reports from a gynecologist or a general practitioner. In North Cyprus, it might be additional blood tests you have to undergo. There will be thyroid checks. Sometimes the doctors want to check your immunity. So, whether there's any immunity issues that need to be addressed first. There might be different types of uterus assessments done by a gynecologist. So it might be an ultrasound. Sometimes there's X-ray assessments of the uterus to check for any polyps, anything that could affect the quality of the uterus or the uterine lining. Sometimes clinics ask patients to do a mock cycle to see how they will respond to hormones, how their uterus lining will respond. Um, Overall, it does vary quite a lot, and it's best to just check with maybe a clinic in North Cyprus, another clinic in Spain, and compare what they expect from you. Some clinics will actually expect you to travel there for the tests, and this happens more in patients over 50. Sometimes this is because the clinic needs the tests in the language of the country where you're traveling to. Sometimes it's just easier to arrange because there will be a lot of doctors' assessments that you require, and they need to be done meeting the requirements of the ministry or the authority that they are submitted to. So sometimes clinics recommend you actually travel there to have all of them done, and then you have to consider that you will have to plan for this, take some time off. There will be additional expenses related to travel, but hopefully this will help your doctor ensure that this will be a safe process for you, minimize any risks, and set a personalized treatment plan for you.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you so much indeed for that. And well, we would like now to discuss perhaps some costs abroad. Okay. So how much does egg donation cost? And again, I guess this depends on the clinic itself, but also country. So if you can tell us a little bit on that.
Yeah. Planning for the expense that fertility treatment is can be very difficult because not all costs will be transparent for you. Um, this is why it's good to already have questions prepared for your coordinator about full pricing, any additional costs you can expect. Egg donation is more expensive than IVF with own eggs. And again, it depends on the country or depends on what sort of package you get. But I want to give you some um, estimates of what you can expect. In North Cyprus, what I see across the clinics that I've spoken to patients that they're getting treatment at, usually the starting cost of a package are about 7,000 euros. And this is usually a basic package. You can ask for a more advanced package with more guarantees or more procedures included, more add-ons included that are optional, and they will be more expensive. In Greece, you can expect to pay between 6,500 9,000 euros, depending on the clinic offer and also what they guarantee within this price. In Spain, costs usually start at 9,000 euros, so I would say it's the most expensive out of all those destinations. In Latvia, I know it differs. I often hear estimates at about 8,000 euros as well. These are the minimum basic package prices. To that, there will be additional costs. In terms of medical additional costs, you need to consider pre-treatment tests. Whether you do it in your own country, you might have to reach out privately to providers. If you have to travel, then you have to pay additionally to the clinic for all the tests that they will do with you. There will be cost of medication and potential checkups, so ultrasound assessments during the preparation for the transfer. This is also something that won't be included in your package price. And this is because it is a very individual number. In different cases, doctors will recommend different medication or different doses to give you the best chance. Sometimes, even after the transfer, you will need to take additional medication that you will have to pay for out of pocket. Then there's also additional transfers. So, in case the first transfer doesn't work out, which is a case for quite a significant number of patients, you can expect a second transfer will be necessary, and that second transfer will include additional costs. Not as big as doing the full cycle again, but still you should expect somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 euros for that second transfer. Then embryo freezing, embryo storage. If there's any additional embryos you have, you should ask your clinic how much it will cost for them to store your embryos. Other thing is the packages, and maybe that's something I will discuss in more detail later on, but there will be different packages that you are offered by the clinic, and the cost will differ depending on how many eggs they are using or how many donors they are using, how many embryos they are guaranteeing by the end. There's also non-medical costs that you can consider, like taking time off work, flights, accommodation, any psychological support that you would like to seek during this process, or any other things that you would like to do in this process that will support your journey.
Yeah, again, lots of things to consider for sure. All right, thank you for that. And now let's move on. So, how many visits to the clinic are usually required?
Yeah. So overall, for egg donation, usually one visit to the clinic is required. This is the minimum. You can do everything during one visit. But over 50, you can expect that if a clinic requires you to do a longer list of pre-treatment tests, for example, you're considering North Cyprus, where those tests need to be done in accordance of what is expected by their ministry, then the clinic will probably recommend that you travel the first time for all the tests with the doctor. You can see the clinic, you can purchase the medication on site, consult with the doctor on site as well. And then you come again when it's time to actually start your treatment after all approvals have been received from the authorities. So I would say minimum is between 1 and 2 times. Some patients have to undergo additional genetic testing, which might affect your timeline. Yeah, and when it comes to the timeline overall, maybe just to give you an idea of how the process looks like, after you've decided on the destination, you've narrowed down your clinic choices, and you initiated contact with the clinic, You will need to do all the tests required, get approvals from any authorities that are relevant. Then the next step is the donor selection process, donor matching process, after which the clinic is ready to schedule you in for the procedure. You will receive information regarding when you have to start your medication, when you need to do any checkups before the transfer, and also when you need to arrive at the clinic for the transfer itself. If you're undergoing the process with your partner, your stay would be around 7 days minimum. You would come first to deposit a sperm sample for fertilization of the eggs and then stay until transfer. If you're doing double donation, for example, then you only need to come for the day of transfer, so your stay can be as short as even 3 days. Yeah, so again, how many times you need to visit? Some people prefer to visit more. Some are not able to do so, sometimes because they're flying from the other half of the world. You can always ask your clinic about what options you have, and the clinics have experience with coordinating the process with people coming from far away, so they will have options for you that are convenient and work for you.
Definitely sounds good. Thank you so much. What about success rates over 50? Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, so success rates, I feel like, deserve their own webinar to
Sure.
be explained in detail. Um, when it comes to donation, age of the recipient, age of the woman that will be receiving the transfer, plays quite a smaller, minimal role compared to the age of the donor. The age of the donor is usually what affects the quality of the eggs and also most of the outcomes of the cycle. Your success estimates, if you're 52 or 55, might not be that much different if you're still using egg donation. When it comes to success rates for the egg donation procedure overall, different reports, different research will point us towards different numbers. Recent CDC reports, they report somewhere between 60-65% when it comes to the success rate of an egg donation cycle. There are slight differences when it comes to fresh or frozen egg donation. There's also differences when you consider how that statistic is calculated. So if you see success as a live birth, which is how the women I speak to usually see it, um, it's usually lower than 60%. It would be about 55%, depending on the report we're referencing. Another thing to consider is whether the statistic is calculated based on success following one transfer or multiple transfers, and if multiple, then how many? Because your success rate will be higher if you go through 3 transfers of egg donation. And sometimes it's not something that the clinics are transparent about when they report their own statistics. Overall, I would say it's important to be very cautious of the statistics that you will see on the websites. It's important to be cautious about average statistics because averages don't tell you much about your individual case. They don't tell you about the program you're purchasing specifically. If you're undergoing the treatment with your partner, who is male and will be using his own sperm, then the quality of the sperm might actually play a very important role when it comes to your success rate. All of this should be discussed with your doctor, and they should be able to tell you what you can expect as a result of this program,
Okay.
what your success rate will be, and what will determine it. So, to what extent it will be the egg quality. They will consider your gynecological conditions, your uterus examination results, the sperm quality, all of that. And it's something you can ask for during the first consultation. And they should give you more specific numbers than the ones you see on the websites.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So it's always definitely better to just simply ask directly about your specific situation rather than just look at the average success rates on the website. Yeah. So thanks a lot for clarifying. I think it's really, really important. Many times I've heard also from patients that that they see this clinic might be the best because their success rates is the highest, but it's not. It's possibly that possible that it's not actually accurate. So be aware. Thank you so much indeed. And well, if you can tell us how to choose the clinic. We already mentioned last week that there is no such a thing like a best clinic, right? We already discussed that, and I think it's really important as well to discuss it. How to find which clinic will be the best for me. Let's say, right?
Yeah. And this is a very important question because it comes from a place of really caring for this procedure to work out. And there's a lot of ways that it can be answered, and it will be individual based on that patient's individual case. So the first thing to understand is that, as you mentioned, there is no one best choice for everyone. And to focus more on finding the right clinic for yourself. Many international clinics will have very similar average outcomes. They will have similar experience with recruiting donors, with preparing the egg donation cycle. They will have similar technology in their labs. You can expect a similar quality of care, but there's other factors that you can consider when choosing the best clinic for you. So one of those factors is, are you eligible for treatment there? Will you have to face any additional barriers when accessing the treatment? Are you happy with the anonymity laws, with the information you will receive about the donors? Are you happy with the programs that clinics are offering? So there's different guarantee programs that clinics can offer. Different clinics some clinics use more eggs than others during one program. So it's something you need to consider. You need to consider whether they offer support with the pre-treatment tests, support with the logistics, what egg donor selection process they use, or whether they even meet your budget, or whether all the additional costs will still be within your budget. Another important thing is just to reach out to clinics, start engaging with their doctors, see if the doctor's approach is something that you feel comfortable with. You can ask about the doctor's experience. You can see whether you feel you get enough attention from your medical team, whether you're happy with the responsiveness of your coordinator. All of this can contribute to how comfortable you feel with a clinic, how stressful this process is for you. And especially when going abroad, you need to have a strong sense of support from your clinic, from your coordinator, from your doctor. You need to be able to trust them, because going abroad can feel like you're being in a very vulnerable position, in a new setting, new country. So all of that will be very crucial.
Yeah, clear. And I think we can have a look at some questions that you see probably here. We actually will talk about some guarantees. So maybe we can discuss that. What are the guarantee programs? How to choose the best guarantee program? Because as you can see, we also have the question which clinics give the guarantee for the number of embryos, for example, as well. And there's another one. So yeah, I'm sorry, missed that, but it was right here. Yeah, which clinic give guarantee of the number of embryos? Sorry, yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, so there's two very common type of guarantees you will see with clinics. The first one, most common one, is an embryo guarantee. And for those that feel a bit more confused about what that means, embryo guarantee means that a clinic is certain about the quality of the eggs they're providing. They're confident in how many eggs they need to use to end up with a particular outcome when it comes to the number of embryos you will have available for the transfer. Overall, during the IVF process, there is always some sort of drop in terms of the eggs And then as the embryos develop, there's also a survival rate of those. So you might start with 10 eggs, but it doesn't mean you will end up with 10 embryos. Depending on the quality of the sperm and the egg, the fertilization rate of the lab, depending on again the health of the tissues, but also the incubation setting, there will be a certain drop and you will end up with less embryos than you had eggs at the very beginning. And this is completely normal and natural. And it's the clinic's responsibility to use enough eggs to still give you a result of 1, 2, or more embryos for you to be able to have a transfer. So a guarantee of, for example, 2 embryos means that a clinic guarantees minimum 2 embryos. You might end up with more than 2, but the minimum in your contract is 2. If you end up with less, you have the right to ask for the clinic to create more embryos, and they should do it without any additional charges to you because it's just something they agreed to already in the previous contract. So it gives you some sort of assurance, some sort of safety, security as a patient. Where to find those programs? So they are very standard with most clinics in Spain. They are standard in Greece as well. In North Cyprus, I've seen that some clinics won't offer them, but there are still clinics that do. If you want some more information in terms of the clinic offers and so on, I would urge you to contact me and my team at Fertility Clinics Abroad. We'll definitely send you a link to contact us after this webinar. And yeah, just discuss it with us individually. We will share some more details about different offers of different clinics. But it is quite standard for clinics to offer, even in Latvia, even in North Cyprus, you will find clinics that have those options, and it can give you more security. There are some exclusion criteria. So sometimes, if, for example, the sperm that will be used is of poor quality, the clinic can tell you you won't be eligible for this program. There's also a different type of guarantee program, which is usually called live birth guarantee, which sounds very appealing to people because obviously the goal of this treatment is to have a live birth. However, there's a lot of caveats in the way those programs are offered. Usually the premise is if a live birth is not achieved over the time you receive treatment, then you are eligible for a 100% refund, sometimes 70% refund, some sort of refund. But there will be eligibility criteria, and not everyone will qualify for this. And additionally, to receive this refund, usually you have to undergo multiple egg donation cycles and multiple transfers across a certain span of time before you're eligible for those refunds.
So that's again something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. And there's a question. So I have asked, not a question, but statement from Christina. I have asked, and no clinic gives guarantee of blastocyst. You said embryos, right? That they can guarantee embryos. Is it specified sometimes?
It should be specified. And again, if you're having issues finding a clinic that has that guarantee, but it's very important for you, we will send you a link to get in touch with our patient support team, and we will help you guide you through the options in Europe when it comes to embryo guarantees or blastocyst guarantees. That's also how they're called. So there is definitely clinics that will be able to offer it to you, although there might be some eligibility limitations.
Yeah, like you said before. And let's have a look at some more questions here. Is there like an ideal age of donor?
Yeah, so it's not just about the age. Usually clinics have an age limit for donors, and sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 35. The standard is to not have donors any older than 35. Donors can be as young as 18. A lot of them will be in the early 20s. When it comes to what's the ideal age, there's also other factors that the clinic can consider. So individual fertility factors, the ovarian reserve, it's all the donors that the clinic offers, they will have to undergo screening, they will have to undergo assessments also based on their fertility, based on their age. And sometimes, there will be a donor that is 28 but might already be experiencing early ovarian failure, and then she won't be eligible to donate. So there's more factors than just age. You can ask your clinic what factors they consider when screening donors. And again, I would look into how many eggs the clinic uses per program and how many embryos they're guaranteeing. This way, you're getting assurance that the cycle will end at least in several embryos that will give you a chance to have one or even more transfers. And the more transfers you have, the higher chance of a successful outcome.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And there's also another question. I'm sure you've heard about this before regarding the PGTA and egg donation. I'm sure that there are clinics that offer it, but whether the question is, so do you suggest it? How does it work?
Yeah, so this is also an interesting thing to consider. I would say this is helpful for a certain group of patients, and there are medical reasons for why it might be helpful. It's not necessary for everyone. Whether this is necessary for you, again, it's really important to understand from a medical point of view from your doctor what are the benefits for you specifically. If you're someone that has experienced multiple losses before and they carry certain risks to you, either psychological or physical, it's something that the clinic can consider just to potentially optimize your chances. However, when we're using eggs from young egg donors that have been screened for their fertility and that have passed all the process to become an egg donor, usually PGTA will not be necessary because they already will have a high percentage of euploids, so chromosomally normal embryos. And PGTA means additional costs. It might mean additional approvals in certain countries. It will affect the timeline. It has consequences for you and the process. So it's best to discuss the exact pros and cons when you're comparing the programs offered by the clinic. And a transparent clinic should be able to discuss with you the pros and cons of each decision with a rationale that's related to your context specifically. Yeah, and it's something you should expect, that level of transparency from your doctor and the level of commitment to help you understand which option is the best in your case.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much. And you mentioned Latvia, for example, as one of the countries. How about Georgia, Albania? This is the question. Are you familiar with any of those? Do you have you been in touch with any clinics from there as well?
Yeah, Georgia and Albania, they don't come up very often. Usually the patients I work with, they decide to go either with Greece, North Cyprus, Spain, Latvia as well. But Albania and Georgia, not so much at the moment. And I'm not feeling very confident to discuss the offers offered by their clinics.
Yeah, I guess it's always best to also get in touch with your team directly. You can always have a look,
Yes.
right? This is always the possibility. I think it's always fair to simply do that, and I'm sure you will be able to help, right? All right, thank you so much. And this is the same. I think I'm not familiar with any clinics, to be honest. So, which European countries allow egg donation and surrogacy for single men? And initial research indicates yes for Albania, no for Ukraine. Anything
Mm,
that you could
yeah,
summarize here?
surrogacy, I would say, is a very separate set of treatments, and there's different regulations you need to consider. It's not something I typically assist patients with. However, if you want to get in touch with our team, we're happy to do some additional research for you, help you map out the options, and we will send you the link after the webinar.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much indeed for that. And we will be slowly finishing. So if you have any questions, go ahead, type those in. So finally, I would like to ask you how to prepare emotionally for the treatment itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to emotional preparation, I think there's a lot of factors can affect it. For some people, this process might be difficult because it's another treatment they have to undergo. They've already went through multiple disappointments, multiple distressing events before. For some people, this is difficult because it's their first time and they might be having anxiety, feelings of uncertainty or doubt. So overall, I would say getting as much information about the process as possible is very helpful. It can help you develop realistic expectations when it comes to the timeline, the process, what you can expect, what support you can expect from your clinic, what you can expect in terms of the outcome, the results, understanding, for example, that oftentimes more than one transfers are necessary. Oftentimes there will be things in the process that come up. You might need to get more tests. You might be disappointed with an outcome of your test. So getting an understanding of all of that is really important. And you can reach out to us. We can advise on things to look out for, things to expect. You can reach out to other people that are pursuing at the moment or have already pursued egg donation abroad. There's a lot of communities now on the internet, on social media, on WhatsApp, where you can learn from the personal experiences of other people. And it gives you both the information that helps you feel empowered and knowing what to expect, knowing what to ask, but also it gives you some emotional support and some social support, knowing that you're not alone going through it, knowing where to find resources to help you. It is very important. Another thing I hear a lot from my patients is that their partners, their families, their social networks are very important. So getting that social support, letting your social support know it will be an intense time for you and you might need a bit more caring that time is very important. Other things I would say is managing the psychological aspects of this journey, and that for some people might involve more self care activities, while for others might be reaching out to fertility counselors or other professionals in your area or online that can support you through this process that have experience supporting patients through this.
Definitely. Thanks, Rob. Right. Thank you so much indeed. As I mentioned, we will be slowly finishing, but of course, if you have any questions right now or if you will have questions later on, please remember that you can reach out to Alice, and you can reach out to us. We'll be happy to share some details with you. And actually, after we finish this event, you will be redirected to our website where you can actually book your own consultation with Alice and her team. So if you feel that this is something that there are things that you would like to discuss, I'm sure Alice and her team at Fertility Clinics Abroad, they will be happy to help. So you can just fill it in and they will definitely get in touch. All right. I think we will be finishing for today, but of course, there are plenty of things to still discuss, and we will be back with Alice. Actually, we will be back next week on Thursday. So if you have more questions as well, you can definitely join us. Alice, thank you so much for today. It's been, again, very interesting, very informative session. Any final words before we finish for today?
Yeah, I just want to encourage anyone that still has questions to reach out to us. We are always happy to help. Yeah, and thank you so much for this time. It was lovely to speak to you, and I hope this was useful for the audience as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much indeed. As I mentioned, we will be back. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, have a lovely evening. And we are here if you have any other questions as well. Okay.